Okay, 1 in 4 homeowners are underwater. That means they owe more on their mortgage than their actual home is worth. Most of those people, Christine, are going to continue to live in their home and pay their mortgage.
Absolutely. For them, they're going to stay in that home, and they know that over 10 or 15 or even 20 years, they're actually going to be able to recoup that investment. Those that can no longer afford to stay in their homes right now, they're at the heart of the foreclosure crisis. They're going to be foreclosed on, or they're going to have do a deed in lieu or a short sale. They're going to try to work with the bank. But there's also a new trend, Allie. These are the folks who can afford to keep paying the mortgage. Instead, they simply refuse to spend the next 25 years paying off a home that has seen its value drop significantly. In some cases, the value of these homes have been cut in half, and they're saying,
yep,
why should I stay?
Jeff Horton's one of those guys. He is walking away from not a mortgage, 2 mortgages. He's got 2 properties underwater. One is a condo that he rents out. The other is a home that he lives in. Jeff, help me understand this. If I go to Best Buy, I buy a TV, put it on credit, but I was the first guy to buy that new TV, and 6 months later, it's selling for a lot less money than I paid for it. I can't stop paying the bill if I had monthly payments on it. So why can you stop paying your mortgage because the value of the house has gone down?
Fortunately, I'm in a position where I can do that. The bank owns the property. I can give it back to them. They can do with it what they choose. If they decide to sit on it and rent it out for 5, 7, 10 years until the value of the home comes back, then that's their prerogative. They can do that and then recoup their investment.
But why, Jeff, why is that their problem? You made a decision to buy a house at a certain price. We all make decisions. Sometimes we make, sometimes we lose. Why is the bank's problem? Because you doing that means that I have a harder time getting a mortgage.
It's just the decision that I've made personally to do that. I mean, it's a contract. People do it all the time. You hear on Wall Street that Morgan Stanley backed out of 5 office buildings. I mean, why is it okay for them to do it, but I can't do it? I mean, morally maybe it's not okay, but financially it's a decision that I had to make.
Well, let me ask you, Jeff, because you make a good point. If everyone thought like you, we would have what kind of, there'd be no contract law here. If people can't honor their contracts, what happens to sort of the fabric of business? And I don't know, I mean, you talked about the morality of it, but do you really want to hold up Wall Street banks as an example of how you should behave?
No, but I mean, it's just a decision that I have to make, and
Let me ask you,
Jeff, sorry, go ahead, Christine.
Well, I wanted to ask him, did you feel like you were deceived into that mortgage? Was there anything that was hidden? I mean, because some people who are walking away, they say they found out they had an exploding interest rate, or they found out something that makes them feel like the lender wasn't honest with them. Were you misled, or did you have some kind of a predatory loan? Is there something that was wrong with the loan, or you just don't like it anymore?
I don't think I was misled. The problem for me was that the original lender of my mortgage has gone bankrupt. Mm-hmm. That mortgage was sold to another lender, which has gone bankrupt. That mortgage has then been sold to a third lender who owns the mortgage now. Gosh knows what they paid for it, and so they probably assumed the loan for significantly less than it was worth. They are completely unwilling to work with me on principal deferment, interest deferment. They won't defer any principal to the back end of the loan. Mm-hmm. They won't lower the payments. They won't do anything for me. So in my particular situation, I had to make the financial decision to, instead of paying double what I was paying, I can go rent the exact same home for half. So in my particular circumstance, I made that decision. I'm going to go rent the exact same home that I live in for half. I'm going to save that money, and I'm going to invest it somewhere else.
And I'll tell you, Jeff, we hear this a lot from people. I mean, Allie, I've talked to a lot of different people who say the same thing. I'm paying $2,100 a month for a condo in Denver. Sure. I could rent it for $600 a month. And, oh, by the way, the bank isn't calling me back. So, Allie, you can see why people, I don't know, they get upset about that part of it.
I can sort of see it, except I'm on the other side of that deal. Everything I try to do gets more expensive because of guys like Jeff. Let's bring in Brent White, who's an associate professor of law at the University of Arizona, although he's joining us via Skype from Mongolia.
I think the point that's important is that people walk away from their homes because they're at the end of their emotional rope. They're deeply underwater. The average person who defaults on their mortgage is 68% underwater. Right. They owe $138,000 more than their house is worth on average. And not a single person in a study I recently conducted walked away before trying to talk to their bank to get their bank to do something. They want their banks to do a short sale. They want to do a deed in lieu, or they want a loan modification. But their banks are simply unwilling to work with them. Most people are told when they call their lender, if they're current on their payments, the lender says, we're not going to work with you as long as you're current on your payments.
Well, and the point of view from the banks, though, Brent, let me just jump in. The point of view from the banks is that they're trying to, what they say is that they're trying to help the people who need to be helped, but somebody who can afford the monthly payments. And in Jeff's case, he's got two properties. He's got two properties, one of which is a rental property. People who can afford the payments, those aren't the fire that are burning for them. Do you think that we're going to see more of this, Brent? Do you think that the
mortgage? Are people, I mean, what do we mean by afford a mortgage? Can you afford your mortgage if it means you don't have money for retirement? Can you afford your mortgage if it means you have no savings to send your child to college? The reality is that most Americans bought their house as an investment because they were told by the government, they were told by the financial industry, and they were told by the media that buying a home is a good investment. And for the middle class, their home is often their only investment. And when that investment has now lost 50% of its value, people are faced with a question: do I stay in this house and sacrifice my family's financial future, perhaps lead my family to financial ruin, or do I try to work something out with the bank? Most people who are deeply anxious and worried about their mortgage because they're so underwater call their banks and try to work something out, and they are turned away at the door. Those people who are turned away at the door, given the runaround for months and months, often years.
Yeah, Brent, okay, thanks, Brent.
They can't get a modification.
All right, and I think both Christine and I get the part that's the runaround. I guess what we're having trouble with is people who can't afford it. And you're saying, what does afford mean? Afford means you decided to take a mortgage when you bought that house and you knew how much it was. But listen, we want to hear from you out there. Hang on, Brent. We want to hear from our viewers on this. We want you to email us, send us information at Christine's Twitter or mine, at Christine Romans or at Ali Velshi, or go to our Facebook pages. I think we need to continue this discussion. Brent, when you're back here stateside, we'll have more of it. Jeff and Brent, thank you for joining us today about this very, very interesting discussion.
And and Ali, I'll tell you, I think more and more people are really considering this 2 years into it. I mean, you've seen you get the email and I get the email too, and an equal number of people are saying it's absolutely morally wrong. If you can afford, if it's the same mortgage payment you had 2 years ago, you have the same job you had, but just the value of the home is less, then what really has changed for you if you're going to stay in that investment?
But you could definitely, you can understand why people see everybody else that got a bailout and everybody else that got their debts cut, but the homeowner didn't. I can see that there are sides to this thing, but what Jeff does affect your and my ability to get a mortgage, because now banks are more careful about it.
And one last point, Ali, about this, and this is the bigger question that we need to get answered. What happens when you have widespread numbers of people, from Wall Street bankers to people who own homes, to people who pay their taxes, to people who are working in small business, who decide that the rules don't apply to them, and that they're not going to be the good guy in the double standard?
You have economic anarchy.
Right.